very good morning to you. It's Friday, September 16th, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for staying with us as usual. This is how we do it here every day. This is Friday, AM Prime. Let's tell you what's happening this morning. In a moment from now, we'll be talking with somebody who's walked this road in different kinds of ways, not necessarily on the alley that we are into now. I'm talking about the former Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Ho Choi Charles, weighing in on what is happening, what has happened just months after this tumultuous decision that was made by the people in Tobago. 14-1 is the equation in the Tobago House of Assembly for this party known as the PDP. They seem to be imploding. They have imploded to some extent. Mr. Charles has walked this road before. We will talk with him in moments from now. We're also talking with Mr. Mark Loquan and Maria Nunes in the second hour about something called Women in PAN, those things and more. Of course, the COVID-19 numbers. We take a look around the region. And before we get done, we're talking with Mr. Clarence Mendoza, President of the Concerned Parents Movement of Trinidad and Tobago. So lots to share with you on the program this morning. Well, that's all over the news over the last couple of days. I'll tell you what's in one newspaper. Well, Duke quits. You would have known that if you followed the news yesterday. He has quit as deputy political leader, deputy Chief Secretary in the Tobago House of Assembly. He's, of course, the political leader of this party called the Progressive Democratic Patriots. Have won these 14 seats in the Tobago House of Assembly. Something has happened at the top, and there's some kind of unraveling taking place. Mr. Charles, good morning.
Andy, good morning.
Good to see you, my friend.
And good morning to your viewers and everyone else.
All right, so let's go with what the latest is now. I'm quoting from one of the newspapers here, the Express newspaper this morning, in which you are reported as saying that you had a sense that something would happen, something untoward would happen, and you said you had discussions with Mr. Augustine about it, telling him to be careful, look forward, look towards what may happen as to what has happened. How did you get a sense as to what was going to come down, and that it came down so swiftly?
And I'm saying, Andy, that before the elections of 2020, the general elections, and before the THA elections of 2021, January 6, and before the elections of December 2021, the one that put them into the House now, the Chief Secretary and I, in fact, the teams were meeting. You remember, that is how One Tobago Voice was formed.
Yes.
One Tobago Voice. And during those discussions, Mr. Augustine was told what will happen. And it's not the first time I'm saying that. I'm saying things that will happen, that happens. And I just leave it there. I told him that this would happen.
Yeah,
I offered him something to get away from it, but it was too late. I can't give you the details this morning, but I'm sure over the next couple of weeks and you will hear the details, and I'm sure he himself will talk, I believe.
You mean Mr. Duke?
No.
Mr. Augustine.
Mr. Augustine, yeah. who I spoke to.
Yeah. Let me just quote what is in this story in the Express this morning by Elias Sorayas. He said, Mr. Duke was pushing Mr. Augustine as one of his deputy leaders to be chief secretary because Mr. Duke knew he could not contest an election and lead an election and win an election. Nobody in Tobago would have voted for the PDP if Duke was the leader. And you say, I can't say any more about that right now.
That's accurate, quite accurate, and Mr. Duke himself knows that. And if you are not in Tobago, you have not been in Tobago. I've been in this journey for years. And I could tell you, that is why Mr. Duke sent, Mr. Duke cannot play second fiddle. You know that well. So he only sent Mr. Augustine because he recognized that Mr. Augustine could really bring home the election. But he had no intention of allowing Mr. Augustine to be chief while he's deputy playing second fiddle. That's not tier.
Yeah, so he's on record as saying that the administration had moved away from the party. He says that party comes first and then administration and executive comes after that or come after that, and that was not what was happening. So that is just made up stuff, you
No,
think?
I'm hearing all sorts of things. You have to remember that he made an error. Let me just say this quickly in response to that. He made a serious error. His view was, and I knew, and in fact I texted Mr. Augustine and I told him that do not make any decision. After this thing started, the first video came out and so on. I sent a message in writing to Mr. Augustine and said to him, please do not make any decision. I knew why I was saying that, because I know Mr. Duke would resign from as Deputy Chief Secretary. Even that I knew beforehand. And I told the Chief Secretary that, don't take any action, do nothing. And the reason is that Mr. Duke had relied upon Section 49, subsection 2E of the Constitution, which says that if you contest an election on a party's ticket and you get into the House of Representatives and you are either expelled or you resign from that party, your seat in the House of Representatives becomes vacant. And as a result, an election would have to be called. It happened to Jack Warner, as you remember.
Yes. All right, I think we have some
Was
difficulty.
to remove
Yeah. All right, go
the
ahead.
Chief Secretary. Pardon me?
Yeah, go ahead. We lost the communication there for a
that
bit.
Section 49, Section 49, subsection 2E of the Constitution does not apply to the Tobago House of Assembly, only to the House of Representatives. When that was revealed, we had meetings here on radio, television, and so on. I revealed that, and he found that out afterwards, that it doesn't apply to us. So I know that he would resign. So, and this is why I did not want the Chief Secretary and others to take any steps and so on. That would have other kind of implication, like if you fire him from his party and so on. He would normally do that. And everything that was said happened. It took place.
So the people who have been looking at this and saying that it somehow, to some extent, is incumbent upon Mr. Augustine to try and mend fences with the leader of the party, they're not fully apprised of what the realities are.
No, but of course, human nature, Andy, you will know. Once you have a political party that contests an election and they get into office, you know what will happen. The people would like to see that party intact because they don't have all the information. They cannot analyze the situation as you and I could sit down and analyze the situation. And based upon what I knew before and apprised Mr. Augustine of it long before they contested the election. And let me say this, Andy, very quickly. You would remember that the general election in 2020, that the party I belong to, I think you interviewed me on something sometime, that election, I was TPT at the time before we formed One Tobago Voice.
Yes.
You would remember that my party supported Tasha Boris, the PDP candidate in Tobago West. You remember that?
Yes.
I confused the entire media, confused the whole of Tobago. I remember that. And I sent up a candidate in Tobago East against Mr. Duke. And this is what divine instruction to me was. You need to get involved in the election so that you are able to tell people that Mr. Duke is not a person fit and proper to be representing Tobago. And that's why that was done. And I have to explain to the population, party is not important in Tobago. You require 2 representatives to go to the parliament to see about Tobago's business. But in a general election, party is important for Trinidad because you need to have a party with members because when you win that election, you need a cabinet and they have to be cohesive, they have to work together and so on. So in a general elections in Trinidad, you need party. But in a general election in Tobago, we don't need party. In a Tobago House of Assembly election in Tobago, you need a party because you need an executive council to run the affairs of the business. That's why I sent up a candidate against Mr. Duke. So I was able to tell the population, don't go down that road. And it is even in that context that I chatted with Mr. Augustine.
Yeah, so
I can't give you the details, several things I told him, In fact, I just say this, Andy, quickly. Up to 12 something this morning, there were communication between the Chief Secretary and I.
Yeah.
On Zoom. Several things are happening. I can't say them to you, Andy, except you ask me the question right now. These things were planned. So the issue that you all have in the public domain outside there, that Mr. Duke went out and did this video. The issue about not feeding the people out in New York and so on, that was used to do what he wanted to do.
So to what extent that is true? Because I wanted to come to that. To what extent he claims that people were sleeping on the street and they had nothing to eat and so on, and I'm kind of that's fiction.
But you heard the response to that, and it could have been true because the people who are out in New York from the diaspora, from here in New York, would have prepared videos and said that they would have taken care of those people. It happened because they didn't make any proper arrangement. Not the assembly. They did not make any proper arrangement because the people said communications were made because it's not the first time they are going, They're going up there for a number of years now. And they did not make any proper arrangement. In fact, they left down here after the Labor Day function up the Tobago Day function in New York. And they still went. And that is why when they went up, the place that they were